You've seen the signs on the side of the road. We buy houses with cash. Are they real? How are they really making this happen? We'll unmask what really is going on behind the scenes. People buying properties with cash. Is it a real thing?
Yeah. I mean, people do. People will buy things with cash.
People or companies?
Or companies.
Let me change up that question a little bit. Are people buying properties in cash or companies buying properties in cash?
That's a great question. I mean, almost everybody will buy in an LLC in that scenario. So yeah, companies. But like, what about the signs on the road? You know, are the signs on the road that say we buy houses in cash? What is that? What's going on there?
I mean, I think, are some of those companies truly buying them in cash? Sure. Maybe, they have an allotment of deals that if they hit a certain matrix, they do, cut the check and move on.
But
I mean, where's that check coming from? I would say if they're truly paying cash, lines of credit, private investors, is that coming out of their, working capital account? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of that, I would say in a lot of scenarios, those deals they're wholesalers.
And what's a wholesaler?
So a wholesaler is someone that gets in contact with a seller that is in a distressed situation, and that could be endless. And honestly, in a lot of cases, this is to benefit the seller of getting out of their property with money in hand to move on to their next venture. So a wholesaler gets in touch with this individual, locks up the contract with the seller, and then what they do is they take that contract and they assign it to another buyer, potentially Adam. I'm a wholesaler. I locked up this house with Sally Joe for a certain price, let's say $75,000. And then I say, there's still some room in this deal for Adam to make some money, but I'll sign this contract to Adam for $100K. That difference between 75 and 100 is what the wholesaler makes. So Sally would make 75 minus any payoffs that she personally has or tax liens, etc. I would make 25, and then you would have a deal on the back end that you would either flip or hold as a rental or whatever the storyline is for you.
Yeah.
So I would say they're wholesalers in a lot of scenarios, rather than just through people paying direct cash for you.
Yeah. And let's be clear, that wholesale game, that's a marketing game. That's what it is, because you're marketing on the one side. So you're putting signs on the road, otherwise known as bandit signs, that say we buy houses in cash or call me for a quick cash offer or something like that. Or you're calling people and you're saying, hey, would you like to sell your house? Or sometimes you'll get a postcard in the mail that says, hey, I'd love to buy your house.
I love the ones that they're physical checks.
Yeah.
The ones that say, here's your name, here's your dollar amount, it's signed, it looks like it's real. It's sort of real.
It's sort of real. Yeah. I mean, if you're selling to a wholesaler, there's a lot of reasons to sell to a wholesaler. Like you said, if you're in a distressed situation, if you don't want to go through the normal channels of listing it on the MLS, oftentimes they can promise a pretty quick closing, usually in a few weeks. They'll often buy the houses as is, because those wholesalers are turning around and assigning those contracts to investors, right?
Yeah. So the property condition is kind of irrelevant.
Exactly, yeah. So if you don't want to have to put any money or time or energy in fixing up your own house to get it ready for the public to view it, then selling to a wholesaler can be a really good option. What are the challenges with wholesaling?
Wholesaling as an individual or buying from a wholesaler?
Well, buying or selling to a wholesaler.
So I would say I've bought from wholesalers. Actually, most of the transactions that are part of my portfolio came from wholesalers. So actually our 6-pack that we acquired down in the Dayton area came from a wholesaler. I would say what was pain points from that transaction. So it is still an as-is contract, and wholesalers are not there to speak on the integrity of the house. In some cases, they may not even really know the integrity of the house. So when it's as is, it is as is it can be. And sometimes there's too much stuff in the house to really see the good, the bad, the ugly. We ran into some repairs on our 6-pack that we were not anticipating, because you just don't know what you have until you have it. And it was also, we closed very, very quickly. I would say it was 2 weeks. So you have little time to establish financing and get all those moving parts put together, but still doable. But it was 6 properties. So to do one, pretty manageable. Outside of that, I mean, are there scenarios where as a buyer, they would pay cash?
Are there scenarios where there's a buyer they would pay cash to the wholesaler?
Cash. Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, especially if it is a wholesale scenario, because a lot of times, so if you're in the investment community or if you're just starting out, you may know some wholesalers. I would say that if you're just starting out and you start getting on message boards and things, either on BiggerPockets or your local like real estate investment Facebook groups, there will be wholesalers marketing stuff in those areas. Get on their mailing list. It's good to know because it's a great way to access off-market deals. But why would somebody buy these in cash? Well, maybe they have to close quickly. Maybe they've only got a week left on their contract
On the assignment.
So it could benefit you to buy in cash. Or if, I mean, that's the primary reason.
I would say that that's the biggest pain point. And I always question buyers every once in a while. If a wholesaler's pushing you to close quickly, there is a good chance that they're just coming up on the end of their assignment. So that contract that we talked about with me and Sally is starting to run out of time. And if I don't get the deal locked up and closed with Adam in enough time, I could potentially be the one required to take down that property myself. So my is to get that thing off my plate as soon as possible and on to the next transaction. So definitely that. But I always question also, 2 weeks to close on hard money is what we're traditionally looking for. That's the way to ensure that you get best terms and conditions. I just always question sometimes if the wholesaler's pressing to ensure that they do keep to their contract date, but do we really need to go less than 2 weeks? Because again, your terms and conditions on that hard money loan are very important as well. And so trying to lock up 2 weeks is kind of that sweet spot. But outside of that, I mean, if you pay cash, what are some pluses and minuses from paying cash on the lending side?
So on the lending side, if you're paying cash, you can always refinance, and you can refinance immediately. It's called delayed financing. So with delayed financing, basically it looks like a purchase. It's just there's no seller involved, right? So it's a lot like, so it is a refinance, except oftentimes you'll get the same types of terms that you would get in a purchase loan.
So wait, you're not getting worse terms and conditions? You're getting the same as purchase?
You're getting the same.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
You'll be able to do 80% loan to value, whereas on a traditional refi, it would be 75% loan to value. But typically the rule is it has to be purchased in cash, and it has to be within like 180 days, 120 to 180 days of the purchase date that we originate the loan.
Yeah, I've had a couple of these transactions, and I actually try to start them sometimes while it's still in the purchase stage, so we don't lose too much time. But I think too often people think, oh, if I pay cash, I'm stuck. I just have all this cash out, and I'm not going to be able to get it back. But we definitely have products that can grab onto that cash sooner rather than later. One thing that I feel like I get investors that ask me, like, hey, to avoid some of the closing costs and fees that come along with hard money, like, should I just pay cash? Is there a right or a wrong answer for that?
I mean, here's the thing. This is what I actually just had a conversation the other day with a guy who, this dude makes like $2 million a year just in another non-real estate related thing. That's his income.
Can I be his?
Yeah, I'll see if he's adopting. But he makes $2 million a year. He's trying to get a couple hundred doors in the next like 3 years, right? So he's very aggressive. But even though that he's making $2 million a year, first of all, he has like other expenses. He's got a nice house, and he's got a family, and he's got expenses, and he likes to live like he's making $2 million a year. So, he started off buying everything in cash because he didn't want to pay closing costs, and he didn't want to pay origination fees and all these type of things. Well, guess what? Guess who called me? He called me because now he's got like, I don't know, 30 doors, still shy of those 200 doors, and he needs to come up with some cash. I mean, it's a common story that I hear.
Even for a person that makes $2 million a year, he's starting to get where his cash is limited.
Exactly.
And I think that's what, when investors have conversations with me about this, of like, should I pay cash? The answer is always yes. If you want to pay cash, pay cash. We'll be on the back end. We'll help you with your long-term financing. No big deal. We're not here to pressure you and push loans. It's not what we're here for. You have goals in mind. We're here to assist you to get to those goals. But what I will say is, how many deals do you want going on at the same time? What are those goals? Because if you're trying to hit 200 doors, I think it would be extremely difficult to hit that in that short of amount of time without using financing.
Yeah.
So it really comes down to, what are your goals? How many deals do you want at once? Because what I see sometimes is people will pay cash, and I'll be like, hey, are you sure? I'll just to double check. You sure you don't want to take this down with hard money? There's not going to be a deal coming up soon. You wouldn't want 2 deals at the same time. These kind of questions to ensure that we, go about this transaction correctly. And then all of a sudden, like a month or two later, I'll get a call. Liz, another deal came up and I really want it, but all my cash is in this deal. And I'm like, yeah, we talked about this.
Related to that, when you're in a hard money deal, so this is another one that I get a lot, is people will say, okay, I want to take down the house with hard money, but then I'm going to pay for the rehab myself.
That's another.
So, but here's the thing. If we put you with a with a non-Dutch hard money lender or somebody that isn't going to charge interest on the rehab budget unless you draw it. That's what non-Dutch is. If we do that, then get the escrow holdback for your hard money loan. Get the rehab covered. Make it a part of the loan. If you don't use it, you don't pay a dime for it.
Easy.
Yeah. So that if you do have something that comes up and, oh crap, I've got $50,000 into this house, if you had the escrow holdback, which again doesn't cost you anything to have if you're with a non-Dutch lender, then you can draw that $50,000. Boom, you've got $50,000 back in your pocket to go and take down the next one.
Yeah, it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
Amen.
And I say so often, if banks are willing to lend you money, take it.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you need it, they're not going to give it to
Yeah.
you. Can't say that enough.
Same thing with home equity lines of credit. People are like, oh, I only need $25,000 because I just need to do this one thing. And then it's like, okay, well then 3 years later, something else comes up. And it's like, man, I wish I had another $50,000. And it's like, you could have. So yeah, with home equity lines of credit, take the max.
For
It's
these
the best.
hard money loans, get with the drawn interest lender,
Yeah.
escrow the rehab budget so that you have it. And again, I can't say enough. If you want to pay cash, feel free to do that. All we can say is like, that's realistically, you're going to take down a couple deals a year. That's about it.
Yeah.
And you may limit yourself from having to say no to some deals that come across that you just aren't in the cash position to take it down. It really comes back to your goals of what you're trying to achieve, how many deals you're willing to take down. But we can really kind of guide you through making those decisions. And I would say we press you in a way that says, are you certain? Press you in a way that says, hey, we want, this loan or that loan. It's really to say, hey, if your goals are 200 doors a year or in 3 years, you got to be putting, the pedal down to really make that happen, and lending will be a part of it.
Yeah.